myself, I think 15 minutes, you said, oh, as a cat. Very good. So I'm an alcoholic. My date of sobriety is the 24th of July 1993. Um, and my home group is the Brick Lane group, which meets on a Saturday, which focuses on the Big Book. And a couple of things struck me from that reading. The first one is the phrase God-given program, and the second one is, well, the message of the whole thing, which is the necessity of carrying the message and the question of what the message is. And I was talking to someone earlier this week, and there was mention in the material that Oscar read out about uh, uh, we don't have to agree with other people, or we can disagree. And I think I would go even further than that. It's not a matter of agreeing or disagreeing with anything. If you've got some experience, that's not susceptible to my agreement or disagreement unless I was a witness and can say, well, no, that wasn't true because I saw you doing this or I saw you doing that. Your experience simply stands. I can neither agree with it or disagree with it. And my experience stands. It can't be agreed with or disagreed with. It simply is what it is. Uh, and I suppose that, for me, elicits the question, well, why do we talk to each other if it's not for agreement or disagreement? And there's a line in uh, the doctor's opinion about the fact that the alcoholic's mind must be cleared. First of all, often people require a medical detox. I did it cold turkey in 1993. I was very ill, but I didn't know about anything. I didn't even know that detoxes existed. I just suffered. Fortunately, I didn't have a seizure, but that was more luck than judgment, I think. But anyway, in the doctor's opinion, it says that the person's mind must be cleared before they can uh, understand and accept what we offer. So my experience is offered to others simply to take anything which is useful and to imitate it, as indeed I was given the opportunity to simply observe what was going on in the room. And if I thought someone's experience was useful, if I thought their ideas would help me, I could take them. If I didn't think their ideas could help me, I needn't do anything with them. If I thought their actions had brought about enviable results, well, I could take those actions too. And a friend of mine puts it very well. In AA, it's simply a matter of seeing what is around. And if you want what someone has got, you do what they did and continue to do. And if you don't want what they have, find out just as carefully what they're doing and do the opposite of that. I think it works. I think it works both ways. And uh, as an alcoholic, I'm not naturally a goody two-shoes by any stretch of the imagination. My alcoholism can be very briefly comprised in a couple of ideas. The first one is that I become a different person when I've had a drink. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde does not want to be sober. And I just go on and on and on for months. If I start, I'm out for months. Even though there are little breaks in those months of a few hours, I'm just catching breath before I resume the following afternoon. But more curiously, the second idea is that no end of catastrophes, and there were catastrophes, to me, will keep me away from the first drink. Alcohol in one corner of my mind is perpetually bathed in this glow of attractiveness and innocence, this idea that it's my right to drink, and there's nothing wrong with it, Perfectly normal. There's a bit of my brain that cannot be trained. No matter how rational the rest of me is, there's a bit of my brain that simply will not learn the lesson and periodically pushes up the idea, let's have a drink. Happened after 31 years, I'm happy to report it happens very rarely. But the idea that I might drink or do something else is not gone, and I've seen enough tragedies over the years of people who've been sober decades who've gone out again for various reasons. Arguably for one reason, that's a different matter. I've seen enough of that to know that I'm not cured of alcoholism. I need a program in order to stay sober. But it is not the program itself which keeps me sober. It is a relationship with God. And there's nothing pious about that relationship. I said a couple of minutes ago that I'm absolutely not a goody two-shoes by nature, but I've had to learn to act like one for the sake of my own survival against my nature. And over the years, over the decades, acting in a certain way has actually become my basic modus operandi. I suppose it has become my nature to live in accordance with certain principles. But that relationship with God, as I say, is not a relationship of uh, piety or smugness or self-righteousness or feeling myself superior or some sort of nothing wrong with new agey. It's not pastel coloured. It's not soft. It's not particularly gentle even. It's not sentimental. It's not about beautiful places and incense and nice candles and all of those things. Um, it's a working relationship. Uh, and so on a daily basis, in order to stay sober, I've got to be in a working relationship with God. Why? Because if I'm in a working relationship, as it were, with myself as the highest authority in my land, as the grand chief, as the supreme court, as the final word, as the ultimate arbiter of truth and action, that bit of me that will want to drink will one day put in a proposal, and the rest of me won't realise that it's insane. I've got to not be in ultimate charge. Now, it doesn't mean that I sit there like a potato waiting for God to bring things into my life. Uh, my life used to be unmanageable. It's extremely manageable today. It's very well ordered. It functions extremely well in all areas. Um, entirely due to everything I've learned in AA, I'm not naturally an orderly person. I've become orderly. But I'm not, despite being the manager, the director. And that's the whole point. God will do for me what I cannot do for myself, but will not do for me what I can do for myself. Turning up, paying attention, being diligent, learning from my mistakes, learning from other people's mistakes, studying the literature, taking the steps on a regular basis, putting my hand up for sponsorship, putting hours a day into sponsoring others, which I do. Those are not things which God will do for me. I have to do those because those are actions here in the material realm. The notion of doing those things, the idea, the inspiration, the intuitive thought, the decision involved in the activation of those things and also in the performance of those things. Of course, those come from God. The power comes from God. The energy comes from God. In fact, when I'm sponsoring people, I'm not helping them. I'm creating a channel through which they are helped directly by God. As soon as I think I'm helping anyone, I'm on very shaky ground indeed. But I must take responsibility for enabling that to take place. God will do for me what I cannot do for myself. And I came into AA, as a couple of friends of mine here in this meeting will know, from my constant narration of this. I came into AA very ill, with alcoholism, of course, but also with anxiety and depression, and I suppose it would be PTSD today. Had different names 30 years ago. All sorts of things were wrong with me. I was sometimes violent, certainly antisocial, incapable of performing ordinary everyday functions. My first job was to butter slices of bread. First job sober was to butter slices of bread. And that was stressful and difficult for me. To be in a building with human beings was stressful and difficult and presented challenges almost beyond me as I buttered the slices of bread. I came in with a very low level of functioning. And my story is one not of really learning anything about myself, um, or figuring out what was really wrong in my childhood. I don't think I've ever figured it out, not fully, not clearly, not scientifically. Of course, I've had to do a moral inventory in step 4. I've had to make amends in steps 8 and 9. But those aren't psychological exercises, they're moral exercises. And the curious thing is, all of those things cleared up, and actually cleared up, most of them a very long time ago. Occasionally I get little residual moments, but little more than that. I enjoy, in particular, compared to um, some members of my family who suffer very greatly, as most of them have indeed from mental illness, I'm doing remarkably well, far better than my genetics would suggest I should. Uh, and the way that's come about is by recoiling in horror at the cavalcade of misery I constructed in my mind for decades. The constant mental nagging and fretting and catastrophizing and condemnation and judgment, and the narratives going round and round and round. I didn't resolve those. I recoiled in horror and got involved in the actual universe, which is a lot bigger, I discovered, than the contents of my own head. It turns out what I think about anything isn't worth tuppence. There are a couple of things, and those are things I earn money with. I have an occupation. There are a couple of things I know about. Most things I don't. I'm best off keeping my mouth shut and leaving other people to do their jobs in those areas. So there are a couple of things I know about. I've learned a thing or two about how I've recovered, and I'm happy to share that with other people. But I take otherwise what goes on in my mind with a very great pinch of salt. And the way AA seems to work is by offering me a gargantuan substitute for that. It offers me the entire world. It says, don't worry about what's going on inside your head. Your thoughts, don't worry about those. Look at reality. And it is contact with reality that has revealed the nonsense in my mind to be the nonsense that it is. Wrestling with it directly never worked, because all I was doing was feeding the monster. With the Hydra, you chop off one head and 2 grow back. I don't do that anymore. When I do inventory, it's quick, it's clean, it's monosyllabic, Anglo-Saxon words only. No long words, no technical words, no modern words, no jargon. Basic, clear, simple. If it can't be said in 20 words, I need to think again. And I do some inventory every day, and it cleans out the cupboard. And like Mother Hubbard, my cupboard is bare. There's just nothing. There's nothing left at the moment. It's very quiet in my mind and very quiet in my life. I've had 50 minutes. I'm going to stop. Thank you for listening. I look forward enormously to hearing what you all have to share on this Wednesday.